Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday.
A lot going on. So we learned this morning that the president yesterday greenlit military strikes against Iran and then at the last minute changed his mind. What does it mean? Where are we going from there? We're going to get into all of that and much more today on Rising.
I find it hard to believe it was intentional, if you want to know the truth. I think that it could have been somebody who was loose and stupid that did it.
Mr. President, how will you respond?
You'll find out.
Troubling developments in Iran. Krystal, what's on your radar?
Indeed. This morning I'm looking at on the brink. President Trump yesterday ordered retaliatory military strikes on Iran, but then he changed his mind. So this is per the New York Times. The operation was underway in its early stages when it was called off. Planes were in the air and ships were in position, but no missiles had been fired when word came to stand down. Yikes. That is how close this administration's foolish approach to Iran has brought us to military action, and all of it really completely predictable. So as Democratic Senator Chris Murphy tweeted, "The place we've arrived at tonight on Iran is Donald Trump's choice. He chose escalation over diplomacy without any idea how to get out of the downward spiral he set in motion." I couldn't agree more. It's worth taking a moment here to remember how we got to this place, truly to the brink of war. And it really starts with the appointment of John Bolton as National Security Advisor back in April of 2018. So shortly thereafter, the president pulled us out of the Iran nuclear deal, which was, of course, struck under the Obama administration, and reimposed economic sanctions. At first, actually, not that much happened. Surprisingly, Iran continued to abide by the terms of the deal, and we didn't further escalate. Now, that changed in the last several months. First, in April, the administration designated the IRG, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, as a terrorist organization. Then in May, Bolton announced we were sending a carrier group to the region for reasons that remain somewhat sketchy. It was shortly after that provocation that Iran decided to attack 4 tankers near the Strait of Hormuz. And also in May, we imposed further sanctions, really trying to strangle the Iranian economy and cut off all of their oil exports. In response, Iran announced they would violate some of the terms of that nuclear deal that we, of course, had already walked away from. So we sent 1,500 troops to the region, and that kind of brings us up to the present moment. Of course, Iran attacked 2 tankers. We sent 1,000 more troops to the region. Iran shot down one of our military drones. The president ordered military strikes and then pulled back. The bellicose approach that we've taken since Bolton has come in is meant to either destabilize the regime through economic war or force them back to the negotiating table. Predictably, it's done neither. The regime isn't going anywhere. None of the groundwork has been laid for diplomacy, and we are now on the cusp of incredibly dangerous military action. Mr. President, you did the right thing by calling the military strikes off. Now's the time to sit down with our allies and find a path to diplomacy. Oh, and maybe consider firing John Bolton while you're at it, because Saagar, Bolton, Pompeo, etc., have really boxed the president into a corner with this increasing escalation with Iran, where he has no good options. If he backs down, he does look kind of weak, but that's what needs to happen because no one wants to get into an actual war with Iran.
I couldn't agree more, and I think the president did give the Iranians an out.
What are you looking at this morning?
Well, it's a bit of a different take on this, and it's that the president has his own 1962 moment. What I mean by that is at the height of the Cuban Missile Crisis and during the 13 days, Premier Khrushchev sent 2 letters to the Americans. One was essentially a bellicose letter that if we had responded to that one, we would likely have been on a path to nuclear war. The other was a rambling letter which wanted a path to peace. Essentially, we only decided to respond to that letter. We don't even know yet to this day whether which one was genuine, who was written by whom, because so much was happening behind the scenes. What the president did and what we heard earlier is he gave the Iranians an out. He's saying it was somebody loose and stupid. He said it repeatedly, I don't think this was somebody at the highest level of the chain of command. Even if it was at the highest level of the chain of command, and I don't think the president would say this unless some intelligence indicated this, it is an ability to de-escalate the situation. There is a narrative in Washington and throughout that the President of the United States wants war. There could not be somebody who does not want war more than Donald Trump. One of the things that animates him most is about the global presence of the United States and the amount of troops that we have across the globe that are pursuing counterterrorism missions while we are unable to even pursue a minor infrastructure package relative to what we spent in the Middle East here at home. He canceled that strike last night. We don't know why he canceled that strike, but what we do know is that we are at least going towards a path, Krystal, of trying to get out of this situation. I think Republicans who are beating the war drum are deeply irresponsible and that we have forgotten a lot of the lessons of war. It is a horrific and catastrophic thing. Yes, we are the world's superpower. However, we've been bogged down in the Middle East and in Afghanistan for 18 years. And we also haven't fought a war against a regional power like Iran in a long, long time.
Right.
This is not Saddam Hussein's rinky-dink army.
This
they
isn't
have
patty
a
cake.
surface-air missile which shot down a $130 million drone. We have a narrative in the United States because we have been fighting basically subpar enemies for so long that we have the world's premier military. But people don't understand that while that is true, it is not invincible.
Right.
If you go and you talk to anybody in the actual U.S. military, they will tell you how vulnerable so much of this equipment is to enemy firepower. And I just think we need to take a deep breath. I think it couldn't be more right. We need to pursue diplomacy. I would love to see Secretary Pompeo on a plane tonight, going to either Geneva to sit down with the Iranians themselves, having some sort of U.S. ambassador. We need communication from the administration within the next 24 hours to say what the comprehensive response is going to be, the intelligence behind the attack, what happened. We need transparency here because the uncertainty is where escalation thrives.
Right. They're freaking us all out right now. I mean, that's the bottom line. And it won't surprise you to learn that I have a lot less confidence in this president than you do, because while I do believe that his instinct and his desire is not for more foreign adventurism. However, on the other hand, he has this alpha male, macho, bellicose thing, and those two sides are at odds right now. And as you could see, I mean, we don't know exactly why he pulled back from these strikes, but you can kind of imagine those two sides in conflict where he is very torn, again, because he's been sort of boxed into this corner by his national security advisor and by the Secretary of State into this place where it's hard not to think that the right next move is to escalate and escalate and escalate. We are in this back and forth tit for tat. I mean, he doesn't want foreign adventurism, but we've already sent 2,500 more troops to the region, moved a carrier group into the area. Like, that is not consistent with a president who wants to tone down.
That is classic deterrence, and I think there's nothing wrong with deterrence. I'm not even against a military strike against Iran, but I think we have to do everything humanly possible, A, to get international credibility, B, in order to defend our own interests and make sure that everything is contained. There needs to be a lot of thoughtful action. And there needs to be a willingness to say, if we go here, we're also willing to go all the way up here, because that is a very likely scenario. It may not happen. It didn't nothing happened after the Syria strikes, even though President Obama thought it would get us into a bogged down military conflict of 70,000 troops on the ground. We don't know. I could be completely wrong. All of us could be completely wrong. The Iranians may just, brush it off, and we may return to a different situation. But you have to be prepared.
You have to be prepared. And one thing, last thought on this, obviously we have Democratic debates coming up next week. Very important to me, and I think to a lot of Americans, to hear from all of those candidates how they would handle this situation and what their thoughts on that 2001 AUMF that we've been talking about, what their thoughts on that are, because the other storyline here is it should not just be unilaterally up to this president whether we go to war or not. Congress should have a say in this as well.
Agreed. Next on Rising. Since legalizing marijuana, Colorado's cannabis industry has raked in more than $6 billion.
But there are still major legal hurdles for this growth industry, including how to handle that revenue. Congressman Ed Perlmutter and Steve Stivers explain how their new legislation would fix this. That when Rising continues.